I wanted to talk really briefly about what the tech coordinator should focus on. I feel like both Nick Horminda and Nick Don did a wonderful job of describing what the current feature development is in, or has been. And so I want to talk a little bit about the future today. Um, Come on, slide. You got to advance. That's really a key thing for you to be able to do. Sorry. There we go. Okay. Um, so what is this tech coordinator role? Why did we go this direction? Heather and did a lot of work at the end of last year to figure out what 2026 Hyrax and Haiku technical side could look like. Um, I don't know if the rest of you know this, but funding has been really difficult across institutions for the last couple years. And I think that that has left us a little short on budgets for some of these technical things. And it has also made it more difficult for each of the individual institutions to be able to keep up with development. So I think that we looked at kind of consolidating the two roles down into one role that we could sustain for this year and really using that as a platform to return to a place where we can grow as a community and where it can be more obvious what the value is for each of the partners for their individual institutions. And I know that you all are often in conversations where things are, going to get cut and what's going to get cut and how are we going to do these things with less money. And so we want to make the community a resource for that and not a constraint. So, some of the things that I've heard as I've talked to various folks around the tech coordinator role and what they're really looking for, the big one is easier upgrades. So, we have this repository, it's running on version Y from 5 years ago, or 2 years ago, or 6 months ago. We're worried about upgrading. We're worried about moving them forward. So we really want to be able to focus on that. I think there's a broad understanding that we need to get off of Fedora 4. At this point, IT departments are starting to come in and say, hey, you can't run this old Java app anymore. It's not safe. You need to shut it down, and that removing active Fedora support from the platform, getting rid of all that Wings code would massively clean up the code base. Better training. I always hear that we want more on better training, but I also know that when we throw trainings that we don't always get the attendance we're looking for. And so I'd like to figure out how we can do training in a way that's more incremental and more palatable to folks and that's more accessible. New features, we spent a lot of energy in the community getting the Valkyrie transition done. As Nick Don put it in his slides, and I think Nick Cormenda mentioned as well, like that is in a good place now. That is behind us. And we've, as you saw in the last few minutes, a lot of feature development has been done since then. So that's really exciting. Community growth, seeing new partners, seeing new institutions rolling out a Hyrax or a Haiku instance in 2026 and 2027 is something really important. And then that value proposition for partnership. What is it that being a partner gives you that is, something that is valuable to your institution? Oops, I got two that time. Okay, what? I lost all ability to control my slides. I'm sorry. Let's try that. Okay, that sounds nice, but how do we get there? Things that I've been focused on since January, since I started this role, is shepherding new features into main. Not necessarily writing the new features, but working for ways to get them into main, get them accepted, making sure the CI pipeline stays green, making sure trying to improve the timing on the CI pipeline, which is still too long, and just helping folks get the code that they're putting up into a mergeable state and merged. We want to be more of a yes and less of a no but culture when it comes to reviewing PRs. I'm willing to jump in and do a little bit here and there to like help people get things across the finish line. I know that last 5 to 10% can be really difficult, especially when you're contributing something back. You merged it into your code base and moved on, and you're trying to like get it back into Hyrax or Haiku. Like we want to make that easier and more accessible. One of the ways we're doing that is using configuration variables and feature flags to be able to roll in new features that are off by default so that they can be tested by the folks that are eager for them, battle hardened, and then turned on by default in a future big release. So, I think that it is perfectly legitimate to add a major breaking feature that is off by default and therefore does not break the current release as a minor version bump. It's probably not a patch, but it's a minor version bump. The on by default, switching that variable from being false to true by default, that is the major release. And so by doing that, we can get code into main faster. We can get into the hands of the people that are eager for it right now without tripping up the upgrade process for other institutions that maybe either don't care as much about that feature or aren't ready for that feature. You saw this with flexible metadata. We're seeing this now with redirects and aliases, which is an upcoming feature for Hyrax. And so I think that that really helps like speed up the process. I think that making the releases smaller and making it easier to do the QA is something that is going to be really critical to success in being able to upgrade smoothly. Being able to take it smaller pieces at a time is useful for folks. There will still be people that are 2 years behind and want to come in and upgrade. That should also be possible. And I think the Rails community has done a lot of work to make that easier on the Rails side. And being easier on the Rails side means that it's easier on the Hyrax side. And we need to adopt some of those same principles in Hyrax and Haiku development in order to make smaller, more incremental changes and then make the releases easier to upgrade to. We have a well-trod path now for upgrading to Valkyrie and for moving to flexible metadata. Both those things are big changes, and but they're both now like well-established paths. We need to pave those paths. I want to provide documentation and examples on how we're going to make that happen. But I think the fundamentals are like that just needs to be something that anybody with a modest Hyrax or Rails development background can pick up and do. And it's not quite there yet. Getting it all together, having the map that tells you where all the pieces are, I think that that's something that we still need to create. I think we need to simplify. I'm giving a presentation later tomorrow about the ingestion pipeline, which is a very important piece of this stack, but is also very complicated. And I think there are some ways we can make that easier. And then working with each of you to talk about what the value is for the partnership. So I think that access to the community coordinator and the tech coordinator should be things that are easy sells, right? Like these are essentially partial employees working on your project for very little cost, which is something you can't get if you're doing it by yourself in your institution. And I think looking at what the other benefits might be, whether they need to be exclusive to partnership or can they be community open, but the partnership funds them. Like I just want to make it so that the selling of why Samvera is easier for the folks that are having those conversations. I'm gonna have to fix this. All right. So anytime you're going to choose to do things, there have to be things you don't do. If you're going to focus on something, there have to be some things that you push off. I believe right now that some of these upgrades are things that we'll do probably in the later half of the year. We're not focused on right this minute. So the next Rails upgrade, the next Blacklight upgrade, the next Solar upgrade, those are things we're going to want to accomplish at some point. But we are, I think, in a really good and healthy spot where we've got a version of Rails right now that's supported deep into this year. We've got Blacklight is starting to get a little behind. That's going to be something we have to catch up on here pretty soon. We're probably going to skip Blacklight 8 and go straight to Blacklight 9 for Blacklight 7. It doesn't seem like that's making it that much more of a lift, to be honest with you. So I think that there are certainly things that we can do to skip a step there. And then the solar upgrade is actually more minor, but I think that really we need to focus on the things that I listed before, and that these upgrades are things that we would like to get to, but aren't as high on the priority list at this moment. I think that we are going to, in the near future, need to improve our process around security patches. The number of CVEs being released broadly is increasing rapidly and is likely in the second half of this year to increase exponentially. And I think that we just need to know that that's something that's out there. And then there are lots of places where we could consolidate dependencies and remove technical debt. And I don't want to neglect to make payments on those things, but I do think that they don't have to be the focus right this minute. The question I have for you as the community is, what are the things that I got wrong here? What am I missing? What am I being short-sighted about? Come to talk to me about those things. You can find me in Slack. We can set up office hours. Like there's lots of ways that we can communicate. I'm in lots of the community meetings. Let's have conversations about those things and figure out how we can really make being part of the Samvera community a no-brainer, not just for your institution, but for lots of institutions. And that's it for me.